Imagine your neighbor's kid strolling into your driveway, pointing at your pride and joy motorcycle, and saying, deadpan, "I'll take that." 'Cause his mom, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, told him you were gonna hand it over. What would you even do? I was halfway through my first cup of coffee, leaning against the porch rail, watching the sun ease over the oaks. The morning smelled like cut grass and damp cedar. Birds were doing their little gossip thing. Normal. Peaceful. Then I spot a teenager I don't recognize. Long legs, messy hair, backpack hanging off one shoulder, walking straight up my driveway like it's a public sidewalk. He stops beside my Harley, palms the seat like he's checking a horse's saddle, and says, without blinking, "I'll take that one." I thought he was pulling a prank. I chuckled and tried to meet him halfway. "You a comedian, or what?" He says, "Mom said you're giving it to me. She talked to the HOA." I put the mug down slow. You know that's slow, like I'm trying not to spill boiling coffee on everything, including my morning. "Who's your mom?" He jerks his chin at the cul-de-sac. "There she is, Karen. Sunglasses the size of salad plates. Arms folded. That fixed. Press conference smile that says, 'I run things.'" She gives me a wave like we're swapping casserole recipes, not property titles. The kid straightens, mirroring her posture like it's a drill he's done 100 times. "You must be mixed up," I tell him. He snorts, teenager snort. All air and attitude. "You don't even ride it anymore. And the noise like it bothers the whole neighborhood." Let me be clear. I ride that bike every weekend. I've kept it clean enough to eat off. The chrome catches morning light like it was born just to show off. I tuned that V-twin myself. I bled on those bars and swore at those bolts. It ain't lawn junk. It's a piece of my story. I walk down the steps toward the property line, where Karen's heels are already sinking into my grass. "Karen, what is this?" She doesn't blink. "That motorcycle is an eyesore and a nuisance. The board discussed it. You should donate it to someone who appreciates responsibility." "And by someone, you mean your son?" She doesn't even flinch. "Exactly. He's turning 17 next month. It'd be perfect." I laugh, couldn't help it. "You've lost your mind." Her smile tightens like a purse string. "If you won't be neighborly, I'll escalate." I didn't know what escalate meant in Karen speak yet. I was gonna find out. Before this circus, my life here ran on simple rhythms. Mow on Saturdays. Grill on Sundays. Ride early when the streets are empty and the air's cool enough to feel like a clean shirt. My Harley, older than a lot of marriages on this block, came to me after a rough patch. I'm not gonna pretend riding cures anything big. Grief. Drift. The heavy stuff. But, it sets the noise in my head to a steady hum. You've got wind. The engine. The road. It's like prayer with moving parts. Karen moved in a few years after I did. You could see the storm coming in, how she parked diagonal across the cul-de-sac, like lines are for other people. First month notes on doors about decor harmony. Second month, a printed color palette taped to the clubhouse bulletin board. Third month, a petition to stop offensive garden gnomes. Folks laughed at first. Then she won a seat on the board. Then the vice chair. And somehow, she started talking like the HOA was her personal crown. There's people who take rules like vitamins. And then there's Karen, who crushes the whole bottle and snorts it. Still, I stayed off her radar. I kept my lawn tidy, my music low, my tools put away by dusk. The bike, I parked it under the big oak. Cover on during storms. Tires off the grass. I figured we had a truce. You don't bug me. I don't bug you. Guess I figured wrong. The Saturday after the driveway incident, I rolled out at sunrise. Helmet on. Jacket zipped. Part lighter than it had any right to be. I took the long loop out by the lake, no traffic. Just herons and flat water. I got back mid-morning. Eased the Harley under the oak. Killed the engine. I hadn't even unbuckled the chin strap when sirens cut the quiet. 2 cruisers swung into my driveway like we were filming a cop show. Sir. Step away from the motorcycle. Come again. Step away from the vehicle now. I took 2 steps back. Palms open. Is there a problem? Officer, we received a report of stolen property at this address. The tall one said. A local resident claims you've unlawfully taken possession of a motorcycle promised to her minor son. You could have knocked me over with a feather. This is my bike. Title's in my name. Registration too. Been that way for over a decade. And, like she was waiting for her cue, here came Karen, marching over from across the street like a parade marshal. Kid in tow with his best wounded prince expression. There, she said, pointing as if she'd discovered buried treasure. That's the one. He promised it to my son, then took it back. Isn't that theft? The officer didn't blink. Sir. Do you have proof of ownership? Inside, I said, nodding at the front door. Titles in a file under the hall table. Registration in the same folder. Keys are on a hook. But stay where you are, the other officer said. Calm but iron. We'll retrieve them. I gave directions. They went in my permission, on record. Karen used their absence to lean in close. Voice low and honey thick. You could have done the right thing. Now, the whole neighborhood's gonna see who you really are. I stared at the oak leaves instead of her face. I wasn't giving her the show. The officers came back with a manila folder, bulging like a sandwich. They flipped. Checked the VIN. Walked over to the bike. Matched the numbers. Nodded at each other. It's his. The tall one said. Bored as a cat in July. Clean title. Been in his name for years. Karen's mouth did a quick fish out of water. Her kid scowled so hard, he might have sprained his forehead. This isn't fair. He said I could have it. I said nothing of the sort. I said. Heat slipping through my teeth. Ma'am. The officer said. Tone going official. A promise like that, if it existed, would still require a transfer of title. As of now, there's no evidence of theft. Please refrain from filing false reports. They handed me back my documents and left. Tires crunching gently over gravel. The sirens faded. The bird started up again like someone hit unpause. I wanted to think it was over. That would have been sweet. But Karen doesn't do over. She does escalate. 3 days later, I found a letter taped to my door. Official letterhead. HOA crest. Aggressive font. Notice of violation, community disruption, and failure to comply with courtesy standards. It listed my motorcycle as a nuisance vehicle. Accused me of creating a hostile environment. And this one made my eye twitch. Claimed I made false verbal commitments to transfer property to a minor. The remedy demanded immediate remediation by removing the source of nuisance OR, transferring the vehicle to a community member under board oversight. It was written like a choice. It read like a threat. I sat at my kitchen table and read the letter 3 times. The air felt heavier than the paper. The fridge hummed like it was trying to sound helpful. I ain't easily rattled. But the combination of official stamp plus nonsense accusations, it gets under your skin. It's meant to. I called Mark. We served in the same unit way back. And now he works well down at the state attorney's office. We ain't close. But there's a baseline of trust that doesn't need polish. He picked up on the second ring. You sound like bad weather. You got a minute? I laid out the entire Saga Kids demand. Driveway showdown. Police visit. Now the HOA letter. I kept my voice steady. But I could hear that thin wire of anger humming under the words. Sorry, I don't like bullies. Never have. He went quiet. Then, she's trying to weaponize the HOA to force a private transfer. That's not just petty. That's potentially coercive. What do? Paper beats noise. He said. Document everything. Title. Registration. Photos of the bike where it sits. Timestamps of your rides. That police call number if you have it. If you've got doorbell video of the kid declaring, Mom said you'd give it to me. Save it. Burn copies. Bring me a packet. I've got all that. The doorbell cam caught the kid's whole monologue. That's gold. And listen, don't engage with her directly. No porch arguments. No yelling across lawns. Everything through paper or official channels. She's baiting you. I spent the next day building a fortress of paper. Printed the title and registration in bold. Took high-res photos of the VIN. Pulled the doorbell footage and printed still frames with timestamps. Wrote a clean narrative, dates spelled out. Times spelled out. Called the police station and requested the call log through the non-emergency clerk. I even tossed in a photo of me in the Harley from years back. Just to remind any reader, this wasn't some random flip. It's part of my life. When the stack felt like a brick. I drove it downtown. Mark skimmed. Nodding. The lawyer squints settling over his face. This is tight. He said. We'll log a complaint. And if she keeps pushing, we might suggest mediation. You're on the right side of this. I walked back to my truck, lighter than I'd arrived. Not happy, just steadier. That steadiness lasted until the next HOA newsletter hit the mailbox. The newsletter runs on glossy paper and self-importance. Usually it's bake sale dates, pool rules, and photos of the yard of the month, which, shocker, often looks like Karen's yard. This issue included a community values column. In it, someone no name. Just the board warned about uncharitable neighbors who hoard noisy vehicles and make false promises to our children. It encouraged residents to report hostile behavior to the board for swift action. Neighbors read. Neighbors talk. The block went from normal to whispery in a day. I'd wave at folks on my evening walk and get tight smiles. A couple avoided eye contact. One woman I barely knew pressed a hand to my forearm and said, I'm sorry about the situation. In that tone people use when they've chosen a side but feel bad about it. I'm not gonna lie. That stung. I actually do the neighbor things. I've cleared storm drains. Dragged trash cans for folks who forgot pickup. Jump-started dead batteries. Watched dogs. There's a satisfaction in the quiet work of living somewhere. To be painted as some menace in a glossy flyer, that's the kind of pettiness that makes your jaw ache. I took the high road in public, and the meticulous road in private. I wrote a letter to the board short. Steady. Factual. I requested a hearing. Attached my evidence list. And reminded them the police had already confirmed ownership. I included a line saying, any suggestion that I made a promise to transfer property is untrue and unsupported. No flames. No spice. Just paper. The hearing date came back set for the second Thursday of the month. 7 p.m. Clubhouse. I circled it on the calendar. I cleaned my boots. I ironed a shirt. I'm not above theater if the other side is performing. In the meantime, the doorbell cam kept catching small scenes. The kid practiced the soccer ball against the curb, glancing at my house between kicks. Karen power walked past with her phone held like a badge, narrating into it, walking, observing, documenting as if recording a nature special about an invasive species. There's people who, she'd mutter to no one, then trail off like the thought defeated her. Miguel, my neighbor 2 houses down, wandered over one evening while I checked the chain lube. He's the quiet sort, with a garage that smells like pine and motor oil in the friendly way. "You all right?" he asked. "Eyes on the bike." "I will be." He nodded. "Karen told my wife you shouted at her." I blinked. "I didn't." "I figured," he said. "My wife figured too. Karen's been on us about our citrus tree. Says the color of the fruit is aggressive." He said it straight, then let the absurdity hang there until we both chuckled. "You going to the hearing?" I asked. Miguel shrugged. "If you want me there, I'll be there. I'd appreciate it. Then I'll be there." Sometimes the resistance starts as simply as that. The clubhouse smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. Folding chairs in rows. A long table up front with name placards, Bill, the soft-spoken president, 2 board members whose expressions defaulted to worried, 1 empty seat labeled vice chair. Karen breezed in late, sunglasses on despite the hour, and took the empty seat like a queen reclaiming her throne. The kid sat near the back, chin up, arms folded like he was holding himself in place. Bill tapped the mic. "We'll move to new business. A complaint has been filed regarding a motorcycle and a dispute between residents." He nodded to Karen. "Mrs. Karen, you requested action." She stood with a rustle of papers. "Yes. For months, I have raised concerns about a loud, unsightly motorcycle parked where children play. The owner agreed to donate it to my son as restitution for the disturbance. He reneged. His hostility has created a toxic atmosphere." She turned to the room. "We are a community. We have standards. When someone refuses to honor their word, the board must act." Some heads bobbed. Others tilted, skeptical. I let the silence after her speech settle like dust. Bill looked to me. "Mr. Owens," I stood, placed my folder on the table, and opened it calmly. "I never promised to give my motorcycle to her son. Here's the title in my name. Here's the registration. Here are time-stamped photos of the VIN. Here's the police call report from last weekend where ownership was confirmed on site." I passed copies down the line. "And here are stills from my doorbell camera capturing Mrs. Karen's son entering my driveway and stating, quote, 'Mom said you'd give it to me.'" Bill adjusted his glasses. One board member leaned forward. So far, the chair squeaked. The other scribbled something and underlined it twice. "In addition," I said, keeping my tone even, "the violation letter I received demanded I remove the source of nuisance OR, transfer the vehicle to a community member under board oversight. I have never seen that phrase in our CC&Rs. If it is there, please show me. If it isn't, we need to ask why it was used." The room shifted. You could feel it, a small tide turning. Karen's smile thinned to a line. "You're cherry-picking." "Am I?" I said, and slid forward a printed copy of the newsletter column about uncharitable neighbors. Because this seems targeted, and I'm not the only one who feels targeted. Miguel stood from the 3rd row, cleared his throat. "She told us our citrus fruit was aggressive. Also fined us for a garden hose being visible, for he looked at his notes less than 15 minutes. He lifted a hand. "I support my neighbor keeping his property. He's never been loud when I was home." Nancy from the corner house raised a hand. She tried to find me over the color of my mailbox. Said it was too cheerful. I paid it because I didn't want to fight. But, I regret it now. The testimony kept trickling like a faucet someone forgot to close. A retired teacher talked about a letter shaming her for wind chimes that were audibly whimsical. A young mom described getting a notice because chalk drawings stayed on the sidewalk too long after a sprinkle. Each story wasn't huge. Together, they painted a mural. Bill cleared his throat. We need to pause. The board will review the documents and the bylaws. If, as alleged, language was used in violation notices that does not exist in our governing documents, that is a serious matter. He looked at Karen. We'll table your motion for action tonight. Karen tried to rally. This is bias. He's turned you against me with propaganda. Bill's voice softened, but didn't bend. Enough. We'll do our due diligence. I sat. My pulse, which had been tap dancing, finally slowed to a reasonable two-step. 2 mornings later, an envelope with a law firm's crest appeared in my mailbox. Cease and desist. It began, accusing me of emotional manipulation of a minor, harassment, and defamation by implication. The cure, it said, was immediate transfer of the motorcycle as restitution, or they would pursue civil action. It read, theatrical, like someone had asked a thesaurus to write a ransom note. I scanned it twice, then called Mark. He listened, chuckled once, then got very calm. She's playing chicken with letterhead, he said. We'll answer. Keep everything cold and documented. Mark drafted a response on official paper through a colleague in private practice. It was 6 pages of concise spine, a chronology of events, copies of title, registration, police acknowledgement, the HOA violation letter with the questionable transfer line highlighted, the doorbell stills, witness statements from Miguel and Nancy, and a paragraph warning that continued harassment might trigger a claim from me. It closed with, any further contact should be directed through counsel. We sent it certified. Days passed. No reply. Meanwhile, Bill emailed me. The board had scheduled a special session to audit recent violation letters. The message had the polite shape of HOA email, but there was an undertone like, we found something, and nobody's happy about it. I went about my days. Mowed. Grilled. Took early rides when the dawn light ran like silver over asphalt. I waved at neighbors, and more of them waved back. Small thing. Sure. But small things stacked are not small. Then, I noticed the kid. He started walking past slower, less defiant, more uncertain. One evening, he lingered near the curb while I wiped down the tank. I could feel that teenager gravity wanting to leave, wanting to stay. You need something, I asked. Keeping it gentle. He toe-tapped the curb. She told me you offered it. I didn't, I said. Steady. And even if I had, your name wouldn't be on the title yet. That's how grown-up stuff works. He half smiled despite himself. She gets intense. I noticed. I paused. You like bikes, he nodded. They're loud. Then, quick, I like that. Me too, I said. Within reason. He shifted. Sorry about the police. It was quiet. Almost a whisper. Like the apology embarrassed him just by existing. Not your fault, I said. And meant it. Grown-ups made those calls. He nodded. Then he did the teenage shrug. That means the conversation lived closer to his heart than his mouth would ever admit. He wandered off. People think this is just neighbor drama. It's not. It's about control and humiliation and who gets to tell the story of where you live. It's about whether a rule book is a fence or a weapon. The special session landed on a muggy Thursday. Bill opened with a statement that felt like a stone placed carefully on a table. We reviewed recent violation notices and found language not present in our CC&Rs. Specifically references to transferring private property under board oversight. We will be rescinding any such notices. He didn't look at Karen when he said it. He didn't need to. He continued. We also consulted with counsel on process. The board will adopt a policy no violation letter goes out without at least 2 signatures. And all quotes from governing documents must include section references. We'll also open a channel for residents to appeal without penalty. The room murmured approval. A hand shot up in the back. Nancy again. What about the newsletter column? Bill sighed. We will no longer publish anonymous opinion pieces under the board. If someone wants to write an editorial, it will be labeled as such. With a name. Miguel raised his hand and then, forget the formality. Just spoke. Look. We all want the neighborhood nice. But rules ain't a hammer for one person to swing. We gotta live with each other after the letter is sent. A small, surprised laugh rolled across the room. You could feel tension releasing like a valve. Karen stood. Slow. Gathering herself into what she must have thought looked like dignity. This is a smear campaign. I have given years to this community. Bill met her eyes. Nobody doubts your time. We doubt your methods. Silence. Then a motion from the floor, Nancy again to remove Karen from her officer role, pending a vote of homeowners. Someone seconded, before the echo from the first voice died. Ballots were printed. People lined up. Pens scratching, like soft rain. It took, I don't know, 20 minutes 30 time did its stretchy thing. Bill counted with another member in plain view at the front table. When he looked up, his voice was gentle. The motion carries. You could hear someone exhale like they'd been holding their breath for a season. Karen walked out. The kid trailing. His eyes on the floor. The door swung and thumped. And just like that, the room lost a strange, hard gravity. Afterward, folks lingered. Miguel clapped my shoulder. Nancy squeezed my forearm. A couple I barely knew asked about the bike what year. What engine? Did I really change my own oil? We didn't talk about justice or coercion or bylaws. We talked about small things. Sticker shock on lumber. The best place for brisket. The way the pool heater never seems to work on the first warm weekend. Normal returned. Like a shy animal, you coax out with patience. A week later, a final letter arrived from the law firm. After reviewing the matter, it said, our client has chosen not to pursue further action. No apology. No admission. Just the legal version of backing out of a driveway without making eye contact. I put the letter in the drawer with the rest. Paper beats noise. But it also keeps score. These days, I still park the Harley under the big oak. I still ride early, when the road wears its thin veil of mourning. I still wave at neighbors. More of them wave first now. The kid. He walks past. Earbuds in. Sometimes tosses me a nod, like we share a secret. Maybe we do. Maybe it's as simple as, adults shouldn't use kids as battering rams. Was any of this fun? No. Did I enjoy standing at a microphone defending the right to keep something that's mine? Not exactly. But there's a kind of peace that shows up after you stand your ground with facts. Not fury. You sleep a little easier. You look at your porch and your lawn and that spot under the oak and think, this is home. Not because you won. Because you refuse to be bullied out of belonging. If you've got a HOA, you already know the tightrope. Rules can keep things tidy. They can also turn into a cudgel in the wrong hands. You gotta read the documents. Sure. But you also gotta read the room who's using community to mean my way, who's using standards to mean my taste. And you gotta decide early that you won't hand over your voice just because someone speaks louder. So, let me ask you, 'cause I'm genuinely curious, what would you do if your HOA Karen tried to bully you into giving up your own property? Would you keep it cool and paper heavy like I did? Or would you go full porch speech with a bullhorn? Anyone else had a board twist the rules till they squeal? Drop your story below. Help the next neighbor who's, one letter away from losing their peace. Me, I'm gonna keep riding. Not to be spiteful, just to be steady. When I thumb the starter and that engine kicks over low and patient, there's this little moment where everything lines up. The past. The road. The oak, leaning over the drive, like a blessing. The chrome catching sunlight. The whole neighborhood, breathing, like maybe we learned something and maybe we didn't. But we're still here. And that, neighbor, is enough for me.